Back to My Garden, episode 73.
Welcome to Back to My Garden. Discover your passion for gardening. Here's Dave Ledoux.
Are you concerned about toxic chemicals, GMOs, and frankenfood? Don't panic. Grow organic. Discover my new resource for organic gardening. Go to www.backtomygarden.com/myorganic. Attention garden designers. Free report reveals how to double your garden design business in 12 months or less. Discover 10 ways to attract better clients while reducing costs. Escape the day-to-day grind of doing all the work yourself. You get instant access at www.backtomygarden.com/GD top secret. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world when you listen to this. I'm Dave Ledoux, and welcome to a special episode of Back to My Garden. Tremendous guest for us today, folks. We're going all the way over to jolly old England. Matthew Pottage is a tremendous plantsman. He's a garden writer and a self-described conifer addict. He's the Deputy Curator at Wisley Garden, a 136-year-old majestic 200-plus acre showpiece. He's a lover of retro crisps and 90s comedy. We're going to have a lot to talk about. Please welcome from London, England, Matthew Pottage. Hi, Matthew. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dave. Good evening. How are you doing?
This could be the greatest episode of all time.
I certainly hope so.
You know, I've given you a little intro, and I want to get to know you, and I know our listeners want to hear your story. So take a minute or two, Matthew, relax, share with our listeners a little bit about your background and how did you get into gardening?
Sure. Well, gardening came about at a really young age for me, actually. We always blame my grandma for my love of plants. My parents weren't gardeners, not professional gardeners. There's no real history in the family. But my grandma had a crazy love of houseplants, and I used to spend a lot of time with her as a kid. So I don't know, just through osmosis, I must have picked up some kind of interest, some kind of, I don't know, something from her. But anyway, that kind of started to develop when I was in junior school, in my first school. And I just kept seeing dying pot plants on windowsills and just thought, I need to do something about this. So within no time at all, I seemed to be greening the school and increasing plants in all the teachers' classrooms. And they must have been thinking, what's wrong with this child? And it just developed. I started to love indoor plants, especially cacti, succulents. And then that started to spread outdoors. And, the beauty of having parents as I do, they weren't particularly, concerned about trying to shape my career or trying to push me into anything. And as they had no real interest in gardening themselves, they just let me do whatever I want in the garden. And I always think one of the best ways to get to know plants and to get to know gardening is just to have a go and make mistakes and try things. So with a completely open brief, or completely, freedom in the garden, I think that was one of the best starting points for me to start learning.
Wow, fantastic. Hang on, I'm writing stuff down here. Folks, if you're driving in your car, don't take notes. Keep both hands on the wheel. Me and Matthew are going to just visit and talk about gardening. I'm doing all the note-taking. I'm going to have links up on the blog at Back to My Garden. Make sure you follow Matthew on Twitter. It's at Matthew with two T's, so that's MATTHEW_POTTAGE. Very active Twitter feed. Isn't that amazing how social media, especially for gardening, you probably have followers from all over the world.
Yeah. I mean, I completely underestimated the power of Twitter initially, and I've got a whole network of, what I call Plantsman friends now in London. And gardeners are such great people. They're so generous. They share things. I've had cuttings sent to me in the post, seeds sent, and I've shared stuff back with people. And yeah, it's great. People just find you and you suddenly connect with people. And that common language of plants. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, anything else. If you've got a love of plants, those of us that know, we are really passionate about what we do. You can just talk plants, as cheesy as it sounds, and it's great. You can learn so much just by hearing someone else's experiences.
This is going to sound funny because people go, "Oh, you're from Canada. Do you know Joe or Bill or Tony?" As if, "Oh yeah, I know Joe from Canada." Do you know Michael Perry?
I do know Michael, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
I was just going to say, you guys got to hook up. But yeah, he's the plant hunter for Thompson and Morgan.
He is. This is another great thing on Twitter and social media. I think actually originally found Michael on Facebook through a plant group on there. But he's obviously very instrumental with Thompson and Morgan. I work for the RHS. And the great link that's brought about our relationship, it has... when they're pushing new plants, they're trying to get new lines into the public eye. I'm saying to him, hey, we've got 1 million visitors a year at Wisley. Let's try some of this stuff. Let me have some of it at Wisley. We'll see how it does. People will see it. They'll love it, hopefully. And, it works both ways. So I actually have quite a close working relationship with Michael now. It's good. It's very useful.
Fantastic. Perfect segue. I have to ask you about your career because I was telling my wife, "You're not going to believe who I'm talking to." And she goes, "What?" I was telling her about your garden. Like, you work in a place the size of some of our towns over here. Like, your garden is ginormous. How did you end up there? What's it been like? It's hard to describe.
Yeah, well, Wisley is the second most visited garden in the UK. So it is very big. It's very popular. It's well known. Actually, when I was training at college, one of my lecturers said, you just tick with plants and plantsmanship, and you love the diversity of the plants, the plant world. So, Wisley is really the place for you. Or Kew Gardens. There's 2 big gardens that are, really well known in the UK. Kew is very much a botanical stamp collection of plants. That's what they do. That's a botanical garden. That's fine. Wisley and RHS gardens generally are all about gardening, creative use of plants, cultivars, what people can do at home. We don't have order beds, we don't have things laid out geographically, and it's so much creativity in an RHS garden. So, that floated my boat. That I thought, okay, this sounds good. Visited Wisley, loved it, all the rest of it, and then trained there, and then actually stayed on to work there as a staff member. And yeah, when you're really loving your job and there's always something new, you're always developing, it's really hard to move on. And I've been with the RHS 10 years, and that, it sounds a long while, but it has absolutely flown by.
So many parents, Matthew, listen to this show with kids, and I'm going to kind of give you a North American angle. Is the kids are getting pressure to go off to university at horrendous debt levels. Like, it's not unusual for a kid to be 23 years old and $60,000, $70,000 in debt. And they're getting a degree they cannot get a job with. In the UK, gardening is such a part of your culture that it's a career path, isn't it?
It is. And it's something the RHS is actually very big on, careers in horticulture and recognising it as a career. And what I look back on now, and I didn't really notice at the time, is my parents just stood back and really let me do what I loved. They could see I was really into gardening and into plants, and they never once sat me down and said, not sure you should be doing that. The only kind of resistance I actually saw was from my careers advisor, so-called advisor at school. And, at the time she said to me, the kind of grades you're getting, you don't need to do that. You need to be looking into finance. You could be looking into law. You could be looking into some kind of business avenue. I sat there and nodded my head. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what interested me. And, that I never really batted an eyelid, to be honest. I paid no attention to the woman. But there is still a lot of that. And I think people don't get gardening, they don't get horticulture, they don't know how diverse the industry is. You can be doing anything from growing plants to hire out to film sets. You can be doing floristry, just hands-on gardening, just growing food. And it's all so creative. There's so much creativity. So, yeah, people should follow their heart. They should do what they love. And, you're never short of energy and motivation if you do something you love. It's not an effort. It's not an effort to go to work. It's not an effort to make things happen if it really, makes you tick. So, yeah, I've not regretted it at all. very happy with my career today, to be honest. I wouldn't swap it.
For those of you listening at home, Wisley is spelled Wisley, Wisley Gardens. It's 136 years old, over 200 acres, 1 million guests a year. When I read that age, Canada's only 145 years old. I mean, we're in birch bark canoes and teepees, and you guys are planting gardens in your city. What has it been like this year? Because I know you had a rather good summer for weather.
Yeah, we have. It was actually last winter was blessed with quite a mild winter. It did see actually high winds and quite a lot of rain, but generally it was quite mild. We had a very, very good warm spring. And Wisley is actually known for its magnolias, and we saw great displays from Magnolia campbellii, very early cultivars, with no frost. So brilliant display of magnolias. And we've had a very good growing season, rain, sun, heat, and literally only in this month, in the last couple of weeks of December, we've had the first few frosts. So very, very good season. And yeah, it's good. The gardens looked very, very well on it.
You're surrounded by all this amazing gardens and beauty. I know you're super busy. Did you get a chance to garden yourself this year?
Yes, I always make time for that. I mean, my work is, as I work as my role as Deputy Curator, there is a lot of management. I do spend a lot of time tied to the office, and that's fine. There is, if I can make the whole garden go forward, I'm happy. I'm not hands-on so much. But what I do love is actually being at home and just pottering in my own garden, and just switching off and doing what I want as I want it. And yeah, I do have a little garden in central London where I am, and it's so mild. The real beauty of this, my little garden here, even though it's tiny, it's so warm. We barely get any frost in central London, and it is this funny little microclimate. And there's a house just up the road from me that's got Strelitzia reginae, the bird of paradise, growing outside. I've got a friend who knows the next block of houses has got a Cheeseplant, a monstera, going up the wall, which was probably some throw-out houseplant from goodness knows when. And I've got Platycerium outside in my little garden here. I've got Ficus pumila climbing up the wall, different Asplenium nidus cultivars. And literally, I don't know, with all the, everyone has their central heating outlets and so much shelter, and everyone's on top of each other because it's so dense, central London. It's enough heat island effect to keep away the cold. So I have great fun gardening here. I wish I could put some of this stuff outside at Wisley, but it's a much colder garden now.
So weeks or months from now, they're going to listen to this recording. Somebody's going to Google, can you grow a cheeseplant or bird of paradise in central London? And they're going to listen to this and say, yes, you can.
I tell you, one of the great things really, it stands out. It looks so foreign and alien. But in central London, just near Westminster, not actually far from the Houses of Parliament here, I think from some bedding scheme, somebody must have plunged a Phoenix canariensis and just left it in the ground and just thought it was too much effort to dig out. And it's now absolutely enormous. It's gaining a trunk, and it looks like something out the Canary Islands from Spain or somewhere. But it must have, a couple of hundred fronds on it. It's enormous. And it just makes you think, actually, if we was a bit more creative with our horticulture in central London, you could really make it, it's great as it is. It's quite a green city, but you could do a lot more with it.
Over in North America, especially in the United States, there's this subculture of drive-by gardeners. Like, they will drive in urban settings and throw handfuls of wildflower seeds on an empty patch.
Yeah.
And the city hates it. Like, there are cities that have threatened people with fines and tickets. Yeah. And these rogues go out under the cover of darkness planting flowers all over their cities. What a world we live in.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, there's two schools of thought, isn't there? I mean, I guess some people could say, well, if people don't know what they're introducing, it could be invasive. What is it they're putting down? At the same time, if you've got a bare patch of land, or there's just soil at the side of the roadway or something, would you rather see plants growing there, or would it rather be soil or a bit of grass that the council trims twice a year? I mean, yeah. It's a funny one.
So you've got your own little fortress of solitude in central London, but you were telling me your parents' garden up north, right?
Yeah, so in the north of the UK, in Yorkshire, right in East Yorkshire coast, actually, is where I grew up. And that's where my kind of home garden is. I've got a lot of my plants still there. And we open that to charity, actually, just once a year. But it's, nice little family get-together. Everybody helps out. I must say, since my dad's retired, he has got a lot, he's really into his gardening now. So he does look after it, keeping the grass cut. He likes clipping the hedges. He likes doing all the, I want to say some of the mundane stuff, but he's not really into dealing with the plants. He doesn't touch anything in the borders. He does leave that stuff for me. So that's fun. And that's a little family affair that we, mum can make tea and cake and tell all the neighbours and all that kind of jazz. And I still garden up there, but it has been a good lesson for me because it's horrendous growing conditions there. They're on the exposed Yorkshire coast. There's a lot of salt spray. They're literally 5 minutes from the sea. Very, very heavy boulder clay. The soil there is like plasticine. It's disgusting. And very, very open, very, very flat, not much tree cover, quite exposed. So I know that if I'm growing it up in Yorkshire, chances are it's going to grow down in Surrey where Wisley is, or, it'll grow in London without even trying. So, yeah, it's good. I think it is good for a gardener, good for a plantsman to have a few different experiences on different soils, different climates, growing conditions, because you can give so much more well-rounded advice or be so much more informed about the plant, how it responds, what makes it tick. So yeah, it's tough gardening up there, and it was tough creating the garden because it was quite basic when we first moved into the house, but yeah, certainly learned a lot.
Nice. I want you to look back over this year now. You have your 3 different gardens, a lot of variety. What brought you the most joy, and did anything surprise or frustrate you this year?
Wow, just thinking. A real nice surprise actually this year was a plant that I got given, and I thought I'm going to try this at Wisley because that's where I am most of the time and I can keep an eye on it. And it was a really nondescript, it was a really boring looking salvia. My friend was like, "You love it. I don't have a picture of it. I'm not sure how common it is, but, give it a go." He'd been given it by another planty friend. And it's a salvia called Salvia DBI. And so anyway, this quite unassuming thing grew away. I told my teams about it. I said, this is going to be amazing, guys. I've got several plants in the nursery, so please make use of them. Anyway, a few weeks later, I looked up there. No one had planted any of them because it looks so boring. And I just thought, okay, no one's interested in this. So I'll put a few in at the bottom of a sunny wall. And there they sat until right at the end of the summer, where the day started to get shorter. It's obviously a short day plant, and it started to flower right into the autumn, as some salvias do for us. And this thing has black bracts, and then a huge, long red flower comes out, almost like a pendant looking, I don't know, it's like nothing else. It's like some dicentra on steroids, this really long, bright red flower. And then, of course, as soon as this thing came into flower, everybody wanted to know about it. What is that? Where's it from? The public were writing in because it didn't have a label on it at the time, and people were sending photographs and saying, what was this plant we saw? And it was such a shock. It was fantastic, and it grew. It must have been about 2 meters tall by the end of the summer. It was almost Scandon. It's not quite a climber, but it needed support, so I ended up tying it up to the wires on the wall. And it was brilliant. I'd say if anyone can get hold of it, or if they don't know it, check it out. Salvia DBI. It was my surprise of the summer.
Fantastic. Folks, don't try to spell Salvia DBI on your iPhone with one thumb while you drive. And I'll put a link up on the blog. And by the way, for my American friends, 2 meters is about 6 feet tall, which is pretty tall.
It was a shock. I think I may have actually tweeted a close-up of the flower. It was, bizarre.
That's fantastic when it's a total shocker like that.
Yeah, it is. But I must, I won't dress it up in that. The foliage looks dull as ditch water. To be honest, it's a very, very boring-looking foliage plant. But, when the flowers perform, it stops you in your tracks.
I'm going to give you a cautionary note. Plantsman, I'm an enthusiastic amateur, but I bought this little potted pepper at the nursery 9 months ago, and it had a warning label on, like, caution, extremely hot. Well, I'm like a moth to a flame. Like, okay, I'll show you. I'm gonna grow this thing. It's a cousin of the ghost pepper. It's from the mountains of Pakistan. It's called a Naga Viper, and it's 1.3 million Scoville units.
Wow,
man! I thought I could handle hot stuff. I'm a lightweight now. I realize I'm not even in the same class as these people that eat this stuff. But I have become obsessed with the science and learning about it and the varieties and the breeding. And it's a slippery slope. I can see where people become obsessed and specialize in certain flowers and plants.
Yeah, it only sometimes needs a couple of things to get you hooked. It was similar to me with conifers, actually, and then it's just another variety, another species, another genera, and you just suddenly actually... I want to have one of those. I want to try this. I want to, and yeah, before you know it, you end up like some hoarder of plants. It's a dangerous road.
You're a conifer addict, self-proclaimed and obsessed. Do you believe that you can actually predict the severity of winter based on the pine cones? Have you heard that before?
I have. I'm not convinced, to be honest. I've never seen anything certainly with pinecone production in the UK that's been of note. And we've had a few serious winters, 2009, 2010, and no, maybe it's different with other species than we have in the UK, but I couldn't say with any kind of certainty that.
You get some pretty severe weather. I know last February, I think almost like hurricane force winds were hitting Cornwall or Devon.
Yeah, that's right. We don't seem to have a lot of high winds in Surrey, where Wisley is, and in my 10 years there, I'd never seen anything more than about 35 miles an hour. But actually, last Christmas, it really hit Wisley Gardens, and I think we must have had about 75 miles an hour or something, and that saw some really significant damage, which was it was very, very sad. It's like walking around seeing old friends and family ill or dead and dying. There was bits of tree all over the place, and it was just the severity of the winds. It was very, very high winds. We obviously had the garden close to the public, and there gets to the point where if the weather is so extreme, you can't have a place open to the public, of course, and Mother Nature will do what she needs to do, and you just have to make good afterwards. I guess it's like part of the challenge with gardening, isn't it? You are in Mother Nature's hands, but yeah, we did see some quite extreme weather last winter.
Let's take a quick minute to thank our sponsors and then come back and play 5 quick questions. Attention, garden lovers. Do you want to save time, save money, and have your most amazing garden ever? Receive free tips, strategies, and gardening techniques from passionate gardeners around the world. Join the VIP club for free today at www.backtomygarden.com/VIP. What's the hottest trend in gardening? I think the hottest trend is aquaponics. Can you really grow a massive garden powered by fish? Find out more and discover the secrets to building fish-powered gardens at www.backtomygarden.com/fish. Matthew, I glanced at the clock. Our time is whipping by, and now's the time in the show where we play a game called 5 Quick Questions.
Okay.
This is your chance to share your wisdom and experience with novice gardeners. Are you ready to play?
Not bore everybody about conifers and crisps. Yeah, no, go for it. Let's see how we
Bonus question. What's the best crisp? What's the best?
Oh, that's awful. They're salt and vinegar chipsticks, they're called. I don't know if you have them over there, these little... what my friend said the other day, you're like, why do you eat these things that you'd have at a toddler's party? I was like, I don't know.
In Canada, we have 2, that ketchup and dill pickle.
It sounds good.
Yeah, they're quite popular.
I've never heard of dill pickle, but it sounds good.
Question number 1. Now, amongst your friends, you must be fairly unique with your love of gardening. What do you think stops most people from even trying gardening?
I think there's a lack of understanding in what exactly gardening and horticulture is. People may think, it's something my grandma used to do, or it's something about roses, or having a few house plants. I don't think a lot of people actually get it. And when I've exposed a few friends to gardening or just having some plants or doing something with their front yard, it's always been received so positively, and then you get someone hooked and interested. But I just don't think a lot of people get exactly what's on offer or what you can do in horticulture.
There's always an enabler, like a Gandalf or a Yoda or a Obi-Wan Kenobi. Every gardener had a good role model.
Yeah, I think so.
Question 2. We're going to change it up on you here. Hope you're feeling nimble. What's the best gardening advice you've ever received, or what's the worst gardening advice you've ever received?
The best or the worst? Certainly the best is just have a go. Just try it for yourself. You can read 100 different viewpoints on how to grow something, how to do something, but you just try it and learn on the job. It gives the best advice, gives the best, I think anyway. Some things you lose, some things you gain, but just try it. Just don't be too hard on yourself. Trying to think of the worst gardening advice. No, I must have pushed it so back in my mind.
That's good. Yeah, that's good stuff. The best one I ever got was in grade 3. We were, as a class, learning to grow lima beans in wet paper.
Okay.
And there's this one kid, Jimmy Hanna, used to dig up his seed every day. And the teacher said, Jimmy, once you plant a seed, don't dig it up. And that has stuck with me for 35 years because this poor little kid kept digging it up all the time.
Oh dear, that's not great.
Question number 3. We have such a great resource now with the internet. Do you have 1 or 2 great websites that you'd recommend for a beginning gardener?
Oh, I'm obviously going to be terribly biased. The RHS website, the Royal Horticultural Society, it's actually just won an award in the UK as best gardening website. It's been relaunched. It was about 6 months ago now, and it's brilliant. And the really good arm to the RHS website is the RHS Plant Finder. It's obviously quite UK centric, but it's such a, I don't know if you have something similar where you are, but it's a great resource for looking at plants, where you can find them. It gives profiles on them, how to grow them. It's clear. It's not full of clutter. It's user friendly. That's great. And if you want to get connected socially and some kind of gardening network, then I would recommend Twitter, because I'd be lost without it now, and I've made quite a few connections, as I said earlier. So certainly don't push aside the power of that.
So for all of you listening on Twitter, hook up with Matthew. Follow him at Matthew_Pottage. It's MATTHEW_POTTAGE. Somebody from RHS, I had mentioned them on Twitter 2 weeks ago, and they retweeted me to their list, and I go, whoa, someone at RHS knows who I am. Fantastic. They are just such an organization. For those of you, say, in the States, all of your university and colleges have their own websites, and we'll have some links up, and then all the botanical gardens as well. Question number 4, we'll go old school now. Do you have a favorite gardening book that you can recommend, like a good old school hardcover book?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry, it's another RHS thing. I can see you all rolling your eyes. It's called the RHS A to Z of Garden Plants, but it covers not just hardy garden plants. It has a lot of tenders in it as well. I think it's now a split volume thing, because you need a good back to be able to pick the thing up. It's enormous, and I've got the old school all A to Z in one book. And like I said, I think it's split in 2 halves now, but it's great. Good photos, good guide to the different species, popular cultivars. It's like a one-stop shop, if you like. The other one I'm quite into my woody plants. The other big highlight on my bookshelf is the Hilliers Manual, and that's the well-known nursery Hilliers in the UK. They're based in Hampshire, and they've had several editions of the Hilliers Manual of Tree and Shrubs, I think its formal name is, but that is a brilliant book as well.
All right. And this brings us to question 5. There's no right or wrong answer. Just look into your crystal ball. Is there anything that you've never played around with in the garden that you're itching to try, or maybe something that's going to be, what do you think might be a hot new trend in the gardening world?
Hot new trend in the gardening world? Goodness, well, conifers are due their return, of course. But something that I want to try personally, I've actually set a couple up at Wisley, only small scale. But obviously green walls are big, and green walls are appearing all over the place. And what I'm seeing is great. You see lots of bomb-proof planting in, urban spaces. I see those of heucheras, begonias. But what I actually want to do in my own back garden is have a green wall, but have it stuffed full of Plantsman's interest things. Because I don't have a lot of space in my central London garden. A lot of people don't. So I want to get growing a lot of bulbs, perennials, kind of sub-shrubs, smallish subjects, of course, in a green wall setting, but actually have a lot of diversity there. So it's not just a green foil to look at, but actually have quite a diverse garden, but on a vertical system. So, that's something to get my teeth into when I've invested in the kit. Nice.
For those of you listening on the call tonight, make sure you head over, Google Wisley Garden. They've got a page up on Wikipedia. They've got their own site. Follow Matthew on Twitter. There's so much great photography there. Matthew, you've been a brilliant guest. The time has flown by.
I hope no one's asleep. If people do get onto Twitter and see one picture I tweeted from my parents' garden up in Yorkshire, we have this crazy hedge, this Leandi hedge. And I don't know is Leandi big where you are? Is it this fast-growing conifer hybrid? Do you have it, or are you too cold in the winter?
Too cold.
Okay, so it's seen as being the devil of UK gardens. It grows very, very quick. People don't manage it. It gets out of hand, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, we've got quite a well-behaved, well-looked-after hedge that me and my dad have trimmed these crazy zigzag shapes into. It looks like some toe-period hedge now. And I tweeted it the other day just because I think this conifer gets so much bad press. But when it is maintained, it can be very good. So please have a look on it and give me your feedback, see what you think.
Fantastic. Matthew, we have people listening in about 35 countries. I want to give you the last word to them tonight. Can you leave us with either a pearl of wisdom or maybe a note of encouragement on our gardening adventures?
It's going back to my point earlier, have fun, try things. Just don't be too hard on yourself. Don't kill yourself reading every book on how to grow one thing. If you can get hold of the plant and you like the look of it, just give it a go. You'll learn something, even if you kill it in 6 weeks. I learned that Edgeworthia chrysanthemum hates root disturbance, and it was an expensive lesson, but I know something else about that plant. I look back and laugh, and I've got a gorgeous one in the garden now. So just, don't take it too seriously. Try, have fun, and enjoy it.
Matthew, tremendous. Thanks for being on the show.
No worries. Thanks for having me.